The Infinite X is a gaming desktop from MSI, offering some seriously powerful hardware. In this review, you'll see what the system's got to offer, as well as how well it performs through various gaming benchmarks while overclocked, to help you decide if it's a computer you should consider. Let's first cover the specs we're dealing with in this system, as it's available with different hardware, and most of it can also be upgraded, as we'll discuss later. For the CPU, there's an Intel 8700K, currently the top-end CPU from Intel's Coffee Lake lineup, which has 6 cores and 12 threads, boosting right up to 4.7 GHz out of the box, but can be overclocked further. There's 32GB of dual-channel DDR4 memory running at 2400 MHz, and for the storage there's an Intel 256GB M.2 NVMe SSD, and 2TB 7200 RPM Seagate hard drive installed here. As for the graphics, I've got an Nvidia 1080 here, but it's also available with a 1070 or 1080 Ti instead, and we'll see how this performs later in the gaming benchmarks. For network connectivity, there's both Gigabit Ethernet and 802.11 AC Wi-Fi, with optional Bluetooth 4.2 support. The whole system is listed as weighing 15 kilos, and it comes in at 21 cm in width, 45 cm in depth, and 48.8 cm in height, so it's not really that big. The case is a matte black with some RGB lighting, and overall I thought it looked pretty nice for a pre-built system. The front has this interesting shape with a brushed finish, and there's RGB lighting towards the left which shines through this pattern. Up higher there's the red power button and front I/O, which includes 3.5mm headphone and mic jacks, a USB 3.1 Gen 1 Type-C and Type-A port, and a USB 2.0 Type-A port. Just above the I/O there's also an optical drive. On the top there's an air exhaust vent and handle towards the back, which is useful for moving it around. The graphics card is mounted vertically, and there are holes in the side panel of the case, allowing it to get air. However, you can also install the included glass panel if you prefer, which comes with this model. Unfortunately, it seems like a previous reviewer may have misplaced the screws, so I wasn't able to mount the glass panel myself. However, from the pictures that I've seen, there is about a centimeter gap between the case and the panel, so the graphics card should still be able to get some air. Over on the back we've got all of the rear I/O, which includes a HDMI and DisplayPort, USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type-C and A port, 4 USB 3.1 Gen 1 Type-A ports, Gigabit Ethernet, 5 audio connectors, and SPDIF out. On the MSI Gaming X 1080 graphics card there are 3 DisplayPort 1.4 outputs, a HDMI 2.0 port, and a DVI port. Towards the bottom is the 550W bronze-rated power supply. Underneath there's just some rubber feet which help prevent it from easily moving, and an intake for the power supply fan. Taking a look inside, we can see that there's some more RGB lighting from the strip running along the top, and this can also be controlled in addition to the front lighting with MSI's Mystic Light software. Inside we can also see there's a fair bit of custom plastic going on, and this is what MSI call their Silent Storm Cooling 3, where basically they've split the interior of the case up into 3 separate areas. Each area contains heat-generating hardware, such as the CPU, graphics card, and power supply, which are separated into their own chambers, and in theory shouldn't affect the other components as much. I mean, it's not airtight, so it's not perfect, so it's difficult to really say how much this helps. I like the concept though, and we'll see the temperatures later in the benchmarks. As mentioned, the graphics card pulls in its own air from the side. There's also a small 90mm fan towards the front of the case, which brings air in too, and space for a larger 120mm fan to be installed above that if you want. The CPU cooler is an all-in-one liquid cooler with a 120mm radiator that exhausts air out of the back, and there's another 120mm fan just above this which exhausts air out of the top. The motherboard in use here is the MSI Z370M Gaming Pro AC, so the case at least supports a standard micro ATX motherboard. This gives us a fair amount of upgradability. For example, we're only using 2 of the 4 memory slots, so we can upgrade to 64GB of memory. The board also supports 2 M.2 slots, so you could add in another. Due to the vertical graphics card, most of the PCI slots probably aren't really usable here unless you're adding in something fairly small, and you may be limited in what graphics cards you can upgrade to in the future, as they'd need to fit in the provided space. However, the mount is very sturdy. I mean, it shipped to me like this and there were no issues. But I suppose if it came down to it, you could always remove the plastic and just install a new graphics card in regularly. You could also swap out the CPU if you want. However, as currently the 8700K is the best option for the 1151 socket, there's no real reason to do that here. However, you can buy the system with lower end i5 or i7 CPUs, So if you did that, upgrading to something better in the future would be a possible upgrade path. As a Z370 board, it also supports overclocking, and I was able to overclock the 8700K to 5GHz on all cores very easily, using MSI's Command Center software. So even if you don't know what you're doing, you can boost performance with just a few clicks. I also overclocked the memory to 2666 MHz, and I was able to apply a 220 MHz core overclock to the 1080, which equated in it to running around 2100 MHz. With all of that in mind, let's take a look at some benchmarks. I've run these with both the CPU and GPU overclocked, as I'm assuming if you're buying a system with this high-end hardware, you'll probably be doing that to get the most out of it. Though of course, your overclocks may vary slightly based on the silicon lottery. As this is a fairly powerful system, I've also tested with 4K, 1440p, and 1080p resolutions. To start things off, I've tested PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds using the replay feature, so keep in mind that the frame rate will differ a lot based on what's going on in the game at the time. At 1080p, even at ultra settings in my test, we're able to average above 100 FPS, stepping up to 1440p, and we're still averaging above 60 FPS with ultra settings, and the 1% lows weren't too far behind. At 4K, we start to struggle a bit, requiring minimum settings now to maintain that 60 FPS average. I've tested Rise of the Tomb Raider using DirectX 12 with the built-in benchmark tool, and even at max settings we're averaging 144 FPS, so perfect if you've got a high refresh rate monitor. Moving to 1440p, we drop down a bit, but we're still averaging almost 100 FPS even at max settings. While at 4K, high or lower settings were needed to maintain above 60 FPS. Watch Dogs 2 is a fairly resource-intensive game. I can personally play this game happily at 40 FPS or above. It really doesn't need a good frame rate to enjoy. So at 1080p, even at max settings, it ran really well. Even at 1440p, it still ran well. I had no issues playing at ultra settings for an extended period. 4K actually wasn't too bad. I only noticed some slight issues at ultra settings. Any lower than that and the game was still definitely playable. Ghost Recon is another fairly resource-intensive game, and I've tested it with the built-in benchmark. At 1080p, we're able to average above 60 FPS even at max settings. But if you've got a higher refresh rate display, you can drop down to high or lower to average around 120. At 1440p, the results are still pretty good, just a little dip down to what we saw earlier. While at 4K, you'll likely need to play on lower settings if you still want a half-decent frame rate. Shadow of War with the built-in benchmark tool at 1080p is averaging above 100 FPS at max settings. At 1440p, we're still getting pretty good results, regardless of the setting level used. While at 4K, you'll probably want to run at medium or lower settings if you want to average 60 FPS. I've also tested CSGO. As a well-optimized esports title, it's getting extremely high frame rates at 1080p. Even the 1% lows at minimum settings are above many high refresh rate monitors. 1440p still has ridiculously high average frame rates, and the 1% lows are still fairly high. I'd argue that no one would really play this game at 4K competitively, and although the averages are quite good, the 1% lows dip down quite a bit more here compared to the other resolutions. Now let's check out some benchmarking tools. We'll start with the Unigine benchmarks, and I'll just quickly go through the results for Heaven, Valley, and the Superposition benchmarks. Just pause the video if you're interested in any specific results. Finally, I've also tested Firestrike and TimeSpy from 3DMark, as well as VRMark, and we got some pretty nice results. During testing, I did notice a little coil whine from the graphics card, but that sort of thing will vary between hardware. These are the system temperatures while overclocked, with an ambient room temperature of 25 degrees Celsius. And I was testing with both Ada64 and the Heaven benchmark running at the same time. No thermal throttling was observed, and it's doing quite well. Even with the fans on their default speeds, the temperatures are acceptable. But if you want even cooler results, you can boost the fan speed. However, that will add more noise. The fans on the graphics card don't even spin up until it reaches 60 degrees Celsius. As for the overall system volume, I thought it sounded alright. Both at idle and even while gaming, it was still quieter than many gaming laptops I've tested. But I'll let you listen for yourself. Overall, I thought the temps were pretty good, and as mentioned, I wasn't able to test with the glass panel, so that might change things slightly. In Crystal Diskmark, the 256GB M.2 NVMe SSD performed around 1550 MB per second in sequential reads, and 570 MB per second in sequential writes. So fairly decent, but a little lower on the write speeds in comparison to the reads. The 2TB 7200 RPM hard drive gets around 195 MB per second in sequential reads and 180 MB per second for the writes, which is excellent for a 7200 RPM drive. At the time of recording, with these exact specs, the MSI Infinite X gaming desktop comes in at $2,999 Australian dollars here in Australia, or about $2,100 US at Newegg for my international viewers. Overall, I don't think that's too bad. Just quickly speccing up a similar system with the same MSI components here in Australia roughly comes out to just over 2,700 Australian dollars. So if you're after a powerful gaming PC but would prefer someone else to put it together for you, and get some support on the whole build, then this could be worth considering. I can hear you enthusiasts watching laughing at that, but there are loads of people who just want to buy a computer and play games without worrying about the details. So what did you guys think about the Infinite X gaming desktop from MSI? Overall, it's quite a powerful gaming system. The 8700K gives you Intel's best mainstream CPU, and the Nvidia 1080 is quite powerful too, able to smash games at 1080p, 1440p, and depending on the game, 4K. However, for the best 4K experience, you'll probably want to look at the version with the 1080 Ti. It was good to see that a number of the components can also be upgraded in the future, and that the cooling performance was great too. Let me know what you guys thought down in the comments, or just leave a like or dislike to quickly let me know. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for future tech videos like this one.